The rain had finally stopped, but the sky remained gray and heavy, matching the weight in Robert's chest. He stood outside the rehabilitation center, one hand gripping the cold metal railing, the other holding his phone that he'd stopped checking an hour ago. There were no more calls to make. No more doctors to consult. No more specialists who could promise him anything different than what he'd already heard a dozen times before. His daughter couldn't walk. The doctors said she might never walk again. Robert was the kind of man who solved problems for a living. As the CEO of a software company, he'd built his career on finding solutions where others saw dead ends. He'd turned failing projects into successes, transformed struggling businesses into profitable ventures, and made the impossible happen more times than he could count. But this was different. This wasn't a business problem. This was his little girl sitting in a wheelchair, her eyes empty of the spark they used to have. 6 months. It had been 6 months since the accident. A drunk driver running a red light. A moment of impact that changed everything. The surgeries had gone well, the doctor said. Her spine was stable. But the damage was done. At 12 years old, his daughter had been told she'd spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. Robert had refused to accept it at first. He'd flown in specialists from Germany, from Japan, from the best medical centers in the world. He'd paid for experimental treatments, consulted with researchers working on cutting-edge spinal cord therapies. His wife had begged him to stop, to accept what had happened and focus on helping their daughter adjust to her new reality. But he couldn't. He wouldn't. Until today. Today, the last specialist had given him the same answer as all the others. The damage was too severe. The chances of recovery were virtually non-existent. It was time to move forward, to adapt, to help his daughter build a new kind of life. Robert had nodded, shaken the doctor's hand, and walked out of that office feeling like he'd failed at the one thing that mattered most. All his money, all his connections, all his determination meant nothing. He couldn't fix this. He couldn't save her. The rehabilitation center's automatic doors opened behind him and a nurse walked out, giving him a sympathetic smile as she passed. He'd become a familiar face here over the past months. They all knew his story. They all felt sorry for him. He hated that look of pity. He checked his watch. His daughter's therapy session would be over in 20 minutes. He'd go back in, put on a brave face, and drive her home. Then they'd have dinner and he'd pretend everything was fine while his heart broke a little more. "Sir?" The voice was quiet, almost hesitant. Robert barely heard it over the sound of traffic from the street. "Sir, excuse me." He turned, expecting to see another nurse or perhaps a staff member. Instead, he found himself looking at a boy. The kid couldn't have been more than 13 or 14 years old, thin as a rail with shaggy dark hair that badly needed cutting. His clothes were dirty and worn, the kind of threadbare that comes from wearing the same outfit day after day. His sneakers had holes in them, and he carried a beat-up backpack that looked like it held everything he owned. A homeless kid. Robert had seen plenty of them in the city, though he'd trained himself to look past them most of the time. Everyone did. It was easier that way. "I don't have any cash on me," Robert said, not unkindly, turning back to his contemplation of the gray sky. "I don't want money," the boy said. There was something in his voice that made Robert pause. It wasn't the usual desperation or rehearsed sob story. It was calm, almost professional. "I want to help your daughter." Robert felt a flash of anger. How dare this kid bring up his daughter? Had he been listening to private conversations? Following him? "Look, I don't know what you think you heard, but, sir, I can help her walk again." The words hung in the damp air between them. Robert turned slowly, really looking at the boy for the first time. The kid's face was smudged with dirt, but his eyes were clear and steady. There was no con artist slickness in his expression, no calculated manipulation, just a quiet certainty that stopped Robert's automatic dismissal cold. "What did you just say? Your daughter? The one in the wheelchair inside. I've seen you here before bringing her to therapy." "I can help her walk again." Robert should have walked away. He should have gone back inside, maybe reported this kid to security for harassing visitors. This was clearly some kind of scam, some new angle he hadn't seen before, but something made him stay rooted to the spot. "You're what, 13? 14? And you think you know more than the top neurologists in the world?" The boy didn't flinch at the sarcasm in Robert's voice. "I'm 13. My name is Tyler, and I don't know more than those doctors. But I know things they don't, things my mom taught me before she died." Despite himself, Robert felt his curiosity rising. Your mother was a doctor? A physical therapist. The best one you've never heard of. Tyler shifted his backpack on his shoulder. She worked with people the hospitals had given up on. People with spinal injuries, nerve damage, paralysis. She helped a lot of them walk again. If she was so good, why haven't I heard of her? Tyler's expression darkened slightly. Because she died before she could publish her research. And because she mostly worked with people who couldn't afford the fancy hospitals. People the system forgot about. Robert crossed his arms. This was absurd. He was standing in a parking lot, talking to a homeless teenager who claimed he could cure paralysis. If any of his business associates could see him right now, they'd think he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Look, kid, I appreciate whatever it is you're trying to do, but your daughter's injury is at the L1 vertebra level, probably with damage to the cauda equina nerve roots, Tyler said, his voice taking on a clinical precision that didn't match his appearance. The doctors have told you the nerve damage is too extensive. They've tried the standard physical therapy protocols, probably some electrical stimulation, maybe even talked about experimental stem cell treatments. Nothing's worked because they're approaching it wrong. Robert felt the world tilt slightly. How do you know any of that? I told you. I've seen you here. I've watched the therapist working with her through the window. I've seen the way she moves, the way she responds to different exercises. Tyler took a step closer, his voice urgent but not aggressive. They're treating the injury like it's just physical, just damaged nerves and muscles that need to be strengthened. But that's only half of it. The brain and the body need to relearn how to communicate. The neural pathways need to be rebuilt, not just the muscle tone. Robert stared at this boy, this homeless kid spouting medical terminology like he'd walked out of a teaching hospital. It was impossible. It had to be a con. But then he thought about all the impossible things he'd accomplished in his career. All the times he'd succeeded by listening to the person everyone else dismissed. Let me get this straight, Robert said slowly. You're telling me that you, a homeless 13-year-old, can help my daughter walk when the best doctors in 3 countries have said it's impossible. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it'll happen overnight. But yes, I believe I can help her. Tyler met his gaze without wavering. My mom developed techniques that work differently than standard therapy. I watched her do it dozens of times. I helped her. I learned everything she knew before she got sick. Why should I believe you? You shouldn't, Tyler said simply. You have no reason to trust me. I'm nobody. I'm living on the streets. I probably look like I'm trying to scam you. He adjusted his backpack again, but I saw you standing here and I saw your face. You look like a man who's run out of options. What do you have to lose by letting me try? That question hit Robert harder than he expected. What did he have to lose? His pride? His reputation? He'd already lost the only thing that mattered when his daughter had lost the use of her legs. Everything else was just noise. If this is some kind of setup, if you're planning to ask for money or... I'm not asking for anything, Tyler interrupted. Just let me show you. 1 session. If you don't see something different, something the other therapists haven't done, then you never have to see me again. Robert looked at the boy, really looked at him. Behind the dirt and the worn clothes, there was an intelligence in those eyes that couldn't be faked. A knowledge that seemed too old for someone so young. And more than that, there was hope. Real, genuine hope that Robert hadn't felt in 6 long months. He was probably making a huge mistake. His wife would think he'd lost his mind. The doctors would be horrified. But standing there in that parking lot with the sky still gray and threatening more rain, Robert made a decision that would change everything. 1 session, he said. But if I think for 1 second that you're trying to hurt her or scam us or anything else, I'll have you arrested so fast your head will spin. Understood? For the first time, Tyler smiled. It transformed his whole face, making him look like the kid he actually was instead of someone carrying the weight of the world. Understood. Thank you, sir. You won't regret this. Robert wasn't so sure about that. But as he led Tyler toward the rehabilitation center's entrance, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. It wasn't quite hope, not yet. But it was possibility. And right now, that was enough. The automatic doors slid open and they stepped inside together. The receptionist looked up, her smile freezing slightly when she saw Tyler. Robert could see the judgment in her eyes, the automatic assumption about why this homeless kid was walking into their expensive facility. He's with me, Robert said firmly, and her expression shifted to professional neutrality. They walked down the hallway, past therapy rooms where other patients worked with physical therapists, past walls decorated with motivational posters and success stories. Tyler looked around with interest but not awe. He'd clearly been in medical facilities before. "My daughter's name is Catherine," Robert said quietly as they approached her room. "Katie, we call her." "She's 12. Before the accident, she was a dancer. Ballet was her whole world," Tyler nodded. "I know how hard this has been for her. For both of you. But Mr. Chen." Robert Chen. "Mr. Chen, I need you to know something before we go in there. This isn't going to be a miracle cure. It's going to be hard work. It's going to take time. There will be days when it feels like nothing's working. But if your daughter is willing to trust me, and if you're willing to give this a real chance, I believe we can help her walk again." Robert stopped just outside the door to Katie's therapy room. Through the window, he could see her sitting in her wheelchair, staring at her phone with that same empty expression she'd worn for months. His heart ached. "Why are you doing this?" he asked Tyler. "Really? If you're not asking for money, if you're not trying to scam us, why approach a complete stranger with an offer like this?" Tyler was quiet for a moment, his young face serious. "Because my mom spent her whole life helping people who couldn't help themselves. She taught me that if you have knowledge that can heal someone, it's not just a gift, it's a responsibility. She's gone now, but her techniques, her knowledge, that doesn't have to die with her." He looked up at Robert. "And because I know what it's like to feel helpless, to watch someone you love suffer and not be able to do anything about it. If I can stop someone else from feeling that way, then all those hours I spent watching my mom work, all those techniques I memorized, it all means something." Robert felt something crack in his chest, some wall he'd built up over the past 6 months. This kid, this homeless 13-year-old with nothing to his name, understood something that all those expensive doctors hadn't. Sometimes healing wasn't just about medicine and procedures. Sometimes it was about refusing to give up even when everyone else had. "All right, Tyler," Robert said, opening the door. "Let's see what you can do." They stepped into the room together and Katie looked up from her phone. Her expression shifted from boredom to confusion when she saw her father with this strange, scruffy boy. "Dad? Who's this?" Robert took a deep breath, knowing that what he said next would sound crazy. But sometimes crazy was all you had left. "Katie, this is Tyler, and he says he can help you walk again." Katie stared at the boy standing next to her father, her expression a mix of confusion and something else, embarrassment maybe, or pity. It was the same look she'd seen on her own face in the mirror for the past 6 months, the one she wore when people stared at her wheelchair. "Dad, what are you talking about?" Her voice had that edge to it, the one that had become familiar lately. Sharp, defensive. "Is this some kind of joke?" Robert moved further into the room and Tyler followed quietly behind him. The physical therapist who'd been working with Katie, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Peterson, stood up from where she'd been stretching Katie's legs. Her professional smile didn't quite hide her confusion. "Mr. Chen, is everything all right?" "Mrs. Peterson, could you give us a few minutes, please?" The therapist glanced at Tyler, her eyes taking in his appearance with barely concealed concern. Robert could practically read her thoughts. She was wondering if she should call security, if this homeless kid posed some kind of danger. It was written all over her face. "I'll be just outside if you need me," she said carefully, gathering her clipboard. She gave Katie a reassuring pat on the shoulder before leaving the room, though she didn't close the door all the way. Robert didn't blame her. From her perspective, this probably looked completely insane. As soon as they were relatively alone, Katie wheeled her chair back slightly, putting distance between herself and Tyler. "Dad, seriously. What's going on? Who is this?" Tyler spoke before Robert could answer. "Hi, Katie, my name's Tyler. I know this is weird, and I know you have no reason to trust me. But I think I can help you." "Help me what, walk?" Katie's laugh was bitter, too harsh for a 12-year-old. "I've had the best doctors in the world tell me that's not going to happen. So unless you've got some magic cure they don't know about, I think you should probably leave." Robert winced. His daughter had become so hard over these months, all her softness replaced by anger and resignation. He missed the girl she used to be, the one who laughed easily and dreamed big. The accident had taken more than her ability to walk. "I don't have magic," Tyler said simply. He moved closer, not intimidated by Katie's hostility. "But I do have something those doctors don't." My mom was a physical therapist, and she developed techniques that work differently than what you've been doing here. Your mom? Katie looked at Tyler's worn clothes, his dirty face. Where is she? Why isn't she here instead of you? She died 2 years ago. Cancer. Tyler's voice was steady, but Robert caught the flash of pain in his eyes. But before she died, she taught me everything she knew. I helped her with patients for years. I learned all her techniques, all her methods. Katie's expression softened slightly, but the skepticism remained. So you're what, 13? And you think you know more than Mrs. Peterson out there? More than all the specialists my dad has brought in? I don't know more than them about a lot of things, Tyler admitted. But I know things they don't about nerve rehabilitation and muscle memory. Things my mom discovered working with patients everyone else had given up on. Everyone gives up eventually, Katie said quietly. And Robert felt his heart break a little more. His 12-year-old daughter shouldn't sound so defeated. Tyler pulled up a chair and sat down, putting himself at Katie's eye level. Can I tell you a story? Katie shrugged, but she didn't wheel away. When I was 9, my mom had a patient named Mr. Rodriguez. He'd been in a construction accident, fell 3 stories. The doctor said he'd never walk again. He came to my mom after 6 months of regular physical therapy with 0 progress. Tyler leaned forward slightly. Everyone had given up on him, including himself. But my mom saw something the other therapists missed. What? Despite herself, Katie sounded interested. They were treating his body, but they weren't treating the connection between his brain and his legs. See, when you're paralyzed, your brain stops sending signals to those muscles. After a while, it forgets how. It's like a path in the woods that nobody walks on anymore. Eventually, the path disappears, covered by weeds and brush. Katie nodded slowly. Okay, so my mom's technique was about rebuilding that path. Not just exercising the muscles, but teaching the brain and the body to talk to each other again. She used visualization, specific movement patterns, pressure point stimulation, things that most therapists don't do. Tyler's eyes were bright now, animated. Mr. Rodriguez walked again. It took 8 months, but he walked out of my mom's clinic on his own 2 feet. One person, Katie said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. That's just one person. There were others. Lots of others. My mom kept notebooks full of her cases, her techniques, her research. She was going to publish it all, get her methods into medical schools and hospitals. Tyler's voice dropped, but then she got sick and everything fell apart. The notebooks got lost when I ended up on the streets, and nobody believed a homeless kid when I tried to tell them about my mom's work. The room was quiet for a moment. Robert watched his daughter's face, seeing the internal struggle there. She wanted to hope he could tell. But hope had disappointed her too many times already. Why should I believe you? Katie finally asked. I don't mean to be rude, but you're a kid. A homeless kid. And you're telling me you can do something that doctors with decades of experience say is impossible. You shouldn't believe me, Tyler said, echoing what he'd told Robert outside. Not yet, but give me 1 session. Let me show you some of the techniques my mom used. If you don't feel something different, something the other therapists haven't done, then I'll leave and you'll never see me again. Katie looked at her father. Dad? Robert moved closer to his daughter's wheelchair. Honey, I know this sounds crazy. Trust me, I know. But what do we have to lose? 1 session. If it doesn't work, if this is all just talk, then nothing changes. But if there's even a chance, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Katie understood what he was saying. They'd tried everything else. What was one more attempt? Fine, Katie said, though she didn't sound convinced. 1 session. But if you're wasting my time or if this is some kind of scam, it's not, Tyler said firmly. He stood up and looked around the therapy room, taking in the equipment, the exercise mats, the parallel bars. Okay, first thing we're going to do is different from your normal therapy. Mrs. Peterson probably has you doing leg lifts, resistance exercises, that kind of thing, right? Katie nodded. That's good for maintaining muscle tone, but it's not enough. We need to wake up the neural pathways. Tyler moved to stand in front of Katie's wheelchair. Close your eyes. What? Close your eyes. Trust me. Katie glanced at her father again, and Robert gave her an encouraging nod. Slowly, she closed her eyes. Now I want you to imagine that you're standing up. Not just picture it, but really feel it. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your legs holding your weight. Feel your muscles engaging. Can you do that? I guess, Katie said, her eyes still closed. Don't guess. Really do it. This isn't pretend. Your brain needs to remember what walking feels like before your body can do it again. Tyler's voice took on that clinical precision Robert had heard earlier. Visualization isn't just imagination. It actually creates neural activity in the same parts of your brain that control physical movement. You're literally building pathways right now. Katie was quiet, concentrating. Robert watched, fascinated despite his skepticism. Good, Tyler said after a minute. Now, still with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine taking a step forward. Feel your right foot lifting off the ground. Feel your weight shifting to your left leg. Feel your right foot moving forward and touching down. Really feel it. Katie's face was scrunched in concentration. Slowly, Robert saw something he hadn't seen in months. Her leg twitched. Just a tiny movement, barely noticeable, but it was there. Did you see that? Robert whispered. Tyler nodded but didn't break his focus on Katie. Keep going. Now your left foot. Lift it, move it forward, set it down. You're walking. Your brain is remembering how to walk. Another twitch. Stronger this time. Katie's leg actually moved, just an inch, but it moved. Katie, open your eyes, Tyler said. Katie's eyes flew open. Did my leg just move? You moved it, Tyler said with a smile. Your brain sent the signal and your muscles responded. It was tiny, but it was real. That's what we're going to build on. But how? I've been trying to move my legs for 6 months. I visualize every single day. It never works. Because visualization alone isn't enough. You need to combine it with the right physical stimulation. Tyler knelt down beside the wheelchair. May I touch your leg? Katie nodded, her eyes wide with something that looked like hope. Tyler placed his hands on Katie's right leg, his fingers pressing into specific points along her thigh and calf. My mom discovered that certain pressure points, when stimulated during visualization, can help reactivate dormant nerve pathways. The medical term is mechanoreceptor stimulation combined with motor imagery. It sounds complicated, but basically we're giving your brain multiple signals at once. The mental image of movement, the physical sensation of touch, and the actual attempt to move. All three together are stronger than anyone alone. He pressed firmly on a point just above Katie's knee, then another near her ankle. Now close your eyes again and imagine taking that step. But this time I'm going to apply pressure at the exact moments when those muscles should be engaging. Katie closed her eyes. Tyler's hands moved along her leg, pressing, releasing, guiding. And her leg moved again. Stronger this time. More deliberate. Oh my God, Katie breathed. I can feel that. I can actually feel your hands on my leg. Robert felt tears prick his eyes. Katie hadn't had much sensation in her leg since the accident. The doctor said the nerve damage was too severe. But here she was, feeling Tyler's touch, moving in response to it. This is just the beginning, Tyler said, continuing his work. We're going to do this every day, multiple times a day. We're going to rebuild those pathways one tiny connection at a time. It won't be quick, and there will be days when it feels like we're not making progress. But I promise you, Katie, if you stick with this, we will get you walking again. For the first time since the accident, Robert saw real hope on his daughter's face. Not the forced optimism he tried to maintain, not the false promises of doctors who didn't want to crush their spirits completely. Real, genuine hope based on something tangible. She'd moved her leg. She'd felt sensation. It was proof that recovery was possible. The door opened wider and Mrs. Peterson poked her head in. Mr. Chen, is everything? She stopped, her eyes widening as she saw Tyler's hands on Katie's leg and the tear tracks on Katie's face. What's going on in here? Mrs. Peterson, Katie said, her voice shaking with emotion. My leg moved. I made it move. And I could feel his hands. I could actually feel them. The therapist came fully into the room, her professional skepticism warring with obvious surprise. That's wonderful, Katie. But who is this young man and what exactly is he doing? Robert stood up, moving between Tyler and the therapist. Mrs. Peterson, this is Tyler. He's going to be working with Katie on her rehabilitation. His mother was a physical therapist who specialized in spinal injury recovery. Mrs. Peterson's expression hardened. Mr. Chen, I appreciate that you're looking for solutions, but bringing in an unlicensed, untrained child to work with your daughter is dangerous and potentially harmful. Our facility has strict protocols. Did you see Katie's leg move? Robert interrupted. Did you hear her say she could feel sensation? In 6 months of working with trained, licensed therapists, we haven't had a response like that. One involuntary muscle spasm doesn't mean it wasn't involuntary, Katie said firmly. I made it move. Tyler showed me how. Mrs. Peterson looked between them, her face troubled. Mr. Chen, I really must insist that we follow proper medical protocols. This young man, no matter how well-meaning, is not qualified to provide physical therapy. If something goes wrong, the liability alone will be completely on me, Robert said. I'll sign whatever waivers you need. But Tyler is going to work with my daughter. The therapist shook her head. I can't allow unauthorized personnel to work with patients in this facility. It's against regulations. Robert felt his jaw tighten. He'd been afraid of this. The moment Tyler started showing results, the bureaucracy would kick in. Rules and regulations that were designed to protect patients but sometimes prevented them from getting the help they needed. Then we'll work somewhere else, he said. Dad? Katie looked worried. It's okay, sweetheart. Robert pulled out his phone. Tyler, you said this would take daily work, right? Multiple sessions? Yes, sir. At least 2 hours a day, every day for several months. And you need a place to stay? Food, supplies? Tyler nodded slowly, probably wondering where this was going. Robert made a decision that a part of him knew was crazy, but felt absolutely right. Then you'll stay with us. We have a guest house that's sitting empty. You'll have your own space, access to whatever you need, and you'll work with Katie every day as much as it takes. Mr. Chen, I really don't think, Mrs. Peterson started. My decision is made, Robert said firmly. Katie, honey, get your things. We're going home. But Dad, what about Mom? What's she going to say about all this? That was a good question. Robert's wife, Jennifer, was going to think he'd completely lost his mind. Bringing home a homeless teenager to live in their guest house and provide unlicensed medical treatment to their daughter. She'd probably call the police or a psychiatrist or both. But Robert had spent 6 months watching his daughter lose hope. He'd spent 6 months feeling helpless while the best medical care money could buy accomplished nothing. And in the span of 20 minutes, this homeless kid with nothing but knowledge passed down from his mother had achieved what none of those expensive specialists could do. He'd given Katie hope. He'd made her leg move. Sometimes you had to trust your gut even when your gut was telling you to do something that seemed absolutely insane. Your mother will understand, Robert said, hoping that was true. Once she sees what Tyler can do, she'll understand. Tyler stood up, looking overwhelmed. Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Robert said with a slight smile. You've made some big promises. Now you have to deliver on them. Can you do that? Tyler met his eyes, and once again Robert saw that certainty, that unshakable conviction that had made him stop in the parking lot. Yes, sir, I can do that. Katie reached out and took Tyler's hand. Her grip was weak, her fingers cold, but her smile was the most genuine thing Robert had seen in months. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. Tyler squeezed her hand gently. I'm not going to give up on you, Katie, that's a promise. As they left the rehabilitation center together, Robert pushing Katie's wheelchair, Tyler walking beside them with his battered backpack, Mrs. Peterson watched from the doorway. She was probably already calling the facility director, reporting this highly irregular situation. Robert didn't care. For the first time in 6 months, he felt like they were moving in the right direction. It was crazy. It was risky. It went against all conventional wisdom and medical protocol. But sometimes, Robert thought as they stepped out into the afternoon sun, conventional wisdom wasn't enough. Sometimes you needed to take a chance on something impossible. Sometimes you needed to trust the homeless boy who promised miracles. The drive home was quiet, but it wasn't the heavy, depressing silence that usually filled the car. Katie kept looking back at Tyler, who sat in the back seat staring out the window at the city passing by. Every few minutes she'd flex her leg slightly, as if testing to see if that moment in the therapy room had been real. Robert's phone buzzed for the 10th time. Jennifer. He'd texted her that he was bringing someone home, but he hadn't explained who or why. That conversation needed to happen face to face. He just hoped his wife would be willing to listen before making any judgments. When they pulled into the driveway of their house in the suburbs, Tyler's eyes widened. Robert saw the house through the boy's perspective. The manicured lawn, the 2-story colonial with its neat shutters and flower beds, the 3-car garage. It probably looked like a mansion to a kid who'd been sleeping on the streets. This is where you live? Tyler asked quietly. Home sweet home, Katie said. She'd regained some of her old personality during the drive, talking to Tyler about school and her friends, asking him questions about his life. Tyler had been careful with his answers, not sharing too much, but Katie had a way of making people comfortable. The front door opened before they could get out of the car. Jennifer stood there, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. She was still in her work clothes, a navy blazer and slacks. She must have left the office early when she got Robert's cryptic messages. Robert took a deep breath and got out of the car. "Jen, before you say anything, just hear me out. Robert, your text said you were bringing home someone who could help Katie. I thought you meant a new therapist or a doctor. Why is there a teenage boy in our car?" Her voice was controlled, but he could hear the edge in it. Tyler climbed out of the back seat, his backpack slung over his shoulder. In the bright afternoon sun, his situation was even more obvious. The dirt on his clothes, the holes in his shoes, the way he held himself like someone ready to run at any moment. Jennifer's expression softened slightly, but her confusion remained. "Robert, what's going on?" "Mom, his name is Tyler," Katie called from the car. "And he made my leg move." That got Jennifer's attention. She looked from her daughter to her husband to Tyler, trying to piece together what was happening. "What does she mean he made her leg move?" "Can we go inside?" Robert asked. "I promise I'll explain everything, but we should talk about this as a family." Jennifer hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but this better be a good explanation." They went inside, Katie wheeling herself up the ramp they'd installed after the accident. Tyler followed last, looking uncomfortable and out of place in their spacious living room with its cream-colored furniture and family photos on every wall. "Have a seat?" "Tyler," Robert said, gesturing to the couch. Tyler sat on the very edge of the cushion, his backpack on his lap like a shield. Jennifer remained standing, her arms still crossed, waiting for an explanation. Robert told her everything. About standing outside the rehab center, feeling defeated after the last specialist appointment. About Tyler approaching him with an impossible promise. About watching their daughter move her leg for the first time in 6 months. About seeing real hope on Katie's face. When he finished, Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "So let me get this straight. You met this boy in a parking lot. He told you he could cure paralysis using techniques his dead mother taught him, and you decided to bring him home to live with us." Put that way, it sounded absolutely insane. Robert couldn't argue with that. "Mom, I know it sounds crazy," Katie spoke up. "I thought Dad had lost it too. But Tyler knows things. Real things. He explained about neural pathways and motor imagery and all this stuff that actually makes sense. And when he worked with me, I felt something. For the first time since the accident, I felt something." Jennifer looked at her daughter and Robert saw her expression soften. She'd do anything for Katie. They both would. That's what had driven Robert to spend a fortune on specialists. To chase every possibility, no matter how remote. And that's what would make Jennifer at least consider this crazy idea. "Tyler," Jennifer said, turning to face him directly. "Tell me about your mother." "What was her name?" "Angela. Angela Martinez." Tyler set his backpack down on the floor, seeming to relax slightly. "She got her degree in physical therapy from State University, worked at St. Mary's Hospital for 5 years, then opened her own practice. She specialized in patients with nerve damage and spinal injuries." "Why did she leave the hospital?" "Because they wouldn't let her try her techniques. She wanted to work with patients the other doctors had given up on. Wanted to try methods that weren't in the textbooks. The hospital said it was too risky, too unconventional. So she went out on her own." Jennifer sat down in the armchair across from Tyler. "And these techniques of hers actually worked?" "Most of the time, yes. Not always. Some injuries are too severe. Some patients don't respond. But she had a much higher success rate than conventional therapy. She kept detailed records, notebooks full of her methods and results. She was working on getting her research published when she got sick." "What happened to those notebooks?" Jennifer asked. Tyler's face fell. "Lost. When Mom died, I went into foster care. The system moved me around, and somewhere along the way, everything got lost. Mom's research, her patient files, all of it. When I aged out of the last foster home and ended up on the streets, I didn't have anything left except what I remembered." "That's convenient," Jennifer said, though her tone wasn't accusatory. "No records, no proof, just your word that these techniques exist." "I know how it sounds," Tyler said. "But I can show you. Give me time with Katie. Let me teach her what my mom taught me and you'll see results. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to let me prove it." Jennifer looked at Robert. They'd been married for 15 years and they could communicate without words. He saw her weighing the risks, considering the possibilities, trying to decide if this was hope or foolishness. 1 month, she finally said. You can stay in the guest house for 1 month. If Katie shows real progress, measurable improvement, then we'll talk about continuing. But if this doesn't work, or if I think for 1 second that you're taking advantage of my family, you're gone. Clear? Tyler nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Crystal clear. Thank you. You won't regret this. I hope not, Jennifer said. She stood up. I'll show you to the guest house. You'll need to clean up, get some new clothes. We'll talk about rules and expectations over dinner. As Jennifer led Tyler toward the back door that connected to the guest house, Robert wheeled Katie into the kitchen. She grabbed his hand, squeezing it tight. Dad, do you really think this will work? I don't know, sweetheart. But I saw what happened today. That wasn't nothing. That was something real. I'm scared, Katie admitted. What if I start hoping again and it doesn't work? What if this is just like all the other times? Robert knelt down beside her wheelchair, looking into his daughter's eyes. Then we pick ourselves up and keep trying. But Katie, we have to hope. Because hope is what keeps us fighting. And I saw you today. You're ready to fight again? Katie nodded, wiping her eyes. When do we start? Tomorrow morning. But tonight we celebrate, because today, your leg moved. Today you felt sensation. That's worth celebrating. The next morning, Robert woke at dawn to the sound of voices outside. He looked out the bedroom window and saw Tyler in the backyard, going through what looked like stretching exercises. The boy's movements were precise, controlled, like someone who'd done this routine 1,000 times. By the time Robert got downstairs, Katie was already awake, eating breakfast at the kitchen table. She looked more alert than she had in months, her eyes bright with anticipation. Tyler said we start at 6, she explained. He says mornings are best because the body is rested and the mind is clear. Jennifer came down a few minutes later, still in her robe. It's barely light out. Does this boy ever sleep? He's been sleeping on the streets, Mom. Probably trained himself to wake up early for safety. That thought sobered them all. It was easy to focus on Tyler's knowledge and abilities, but harder to remember that he was a 13-year-old kid who'd been living rough for who knows how long. Tyler came in through the back door, looking cleaner than yesterday. Jennifer had given him access to the guest house bathroom and some of Robert's old clothes to wear. The shirt was too big on him, but at least it was clean. Good morning, he said. Katie, you ready to work? Ready? They'd set up a space in the living room, moving furniture to create an open area with exercise mats. Tyler had Katie transfer from her wheelchair to the mat, helping her position herself on her back. Okay, we're going to start like we did yesterday, eyes closed visualization. But today we're going to go deeper. I want you to think about walking in detail. Not just the movements, but everything. The feel of the ground under your feet, the way your weight shifts, the rhythm of your breathing as you move, the swing of your arms, everything. Robert and Jennifer watched from the doorway as Tyler worked with their daughter. His hands moved along her legs, pressing pressure points, guiding her muscles through the motions of walking. And slowly, impossibly, Katie's legs began to respond. Small movements at first, a twitch here, a flex there, but by the end of the hour she was able to lift her right leg a full inch off the mat. It was exhausting work. Katie was sweating and breathing hard, and Tyler looked almost as tired. Good, Tyler said, helping Katie sit up. Really good. Your brain is remembering faster than I expected. Tomorrow we'll work on the left leg, then start combining movements. How long until I can stand? Katie asked. I bounced around, Tyler said, staring out at the darkening sky. 5 different homes in 2 years. Some were okay, some weren't. I kept trying to tell people about my mom's work, about what I knew, but nobody listened. To them, I was just a troubled foster kid acting out. So you left? I aged out at 13. The last foster family didn't want to keep me, and there weren't any other placements available. Social services helped for a while, but then I fell through the cracks, ended up on the streets. Tyler shrugged like it was no big deal, but Robert heard the pain underneath. Been there about 9 months now. Why didn't you go to a shelter? I did sometimes. But shelters have a lot of rules, and they're not always safe. On the streets, I could move around, stay out of trouble. I've been camping out near the rehab center for a couple months. I'd watch through the windows, see the therapists working with patients. That's how I noticed you and Katie. Robert was quiet for a moment. You could have kept walking. Could have stayed invisible. Why didn't you? Tyler turned to look at him. Because my mom spent her whole life helping people. She gave everything to her work, even when it cost her opportunities and money and recognition. She did it because she believed knowledge that could heal people wasn't meant to be hoarded. It was meant to be shared. He paused. I'm all that's left of her work now. If I don't use what she taught me, then she died for nothing. Her research is gone. Her notebooks are lost. But I'm still here. I still remember. And as long as I remember, she's not really gone. Robert felt a lump in his throat. This kid, this 13-year-old who'd lost everything, wasn't using his knowledge to get off the streets or make money or gain recognition. He was doing it because he believed it was right, because his mother had taught him that helping others was its own reward. Tyler, what you're doing for Katie, for our family, I don't know how to repay that. You already have, Tyler said simply. You gave me a chance when you had no reason to. You trusted me when everyone else would have walked away. That's worth more than money. 4 weeks into the treatment, Katie stood for the first time. Tyler had her between the parallel bars they'd installed in the living room, his hands ready to catch her if she fell. Robert and Jennifer stood nearby, holding their breath. Remember, Katie, feel your feet on the ground. Feel your muscles engaging. Your brain knows how to do this. You just have to trust it. Katie gripped the parallel bars, her face intense with concentration, and slowly, using every ounce of strength she had, she pushed herself up. Her legs shook violently. Her arms trembled from the effort. But she stood. For 10 seconds, she stood on her own 2 feet. Then her legs gave out and Tyler caught her, easing her back into the wheelchair. But those 10 seconds were everything. Proof that this was real. Proof that recovery was possible. Jennifer was crying. Robert was crying. Katie was laughing and crying at the same time. And Tyler just smiled. That quiet, proud smile of someone who'd known all along this was possible. Tomorrow, he said, we work on taking a step. That night, after Katie had gone to bed exhausted but happy, Robert sat down with Jennifer in their bedroom. We need to do something for him, Jennifer said. This can't just be temporary. Tyler needs a home, a real home. He needs to go to school, have a future. I know, Robert said. I've been thinking about that. What if we looked into becoming his foster parents, or even adoption if he'd be open to it? Jennifer nodded. I was thinking the same thing. He's already part of this family. We should make it official. They made plans to talk to Tyler about it, to contact social services and start the process. But for now, they let themselves celebrate the miracle they'd witnessed. Their daughter had stood. After 6 months of doctors saying it was impossible, after countless specialists and experimental treatments that led nowhere, a homeless boy with nothing but knowledge passed down from his mother had helped their daughter stand. Sometimes, Robert thought as he finally drifted off to sleep, the most valuable things in life came from the most unexpected places, and sometimes having faith in someone everyone else had dismissed could change everything. The morning Katie took her first step, the sky was the clearest blue Robert had seen in months. He'd learned not to read too much into signs and omens, but he couldn't help feeling like the universe was paying attention to what was about to happen in their living room. It had been 3 months since Tyler had come into their lives. 3 months of daily sessions, of small victories and frustrating setbacks, of watching his daughter fight harder than he'd ever seen her fight for anything. Katie could stand now, sometimes for minutes at a time. Her legs were stronger. The sensation had returned to most of her lower body. But standing wasn't walking, and walking was the goal. Tyler had been preparing for this moment for weeks, gradually building up Katie's strength and confidence. This morning, he'd woken everyone at 5 a.m. with an energy that was almost infectious. Today's the day, he'd announced at breakfast. I can feel it. Katie's ready? Katie hadn't been so sure. Tyler, what if I fall? What if my legs give out? Then I'll catch you, Tyler said simply. I've caught you before. I'll catch you again. But Katie, you won't fall. Your body knows what to do. We've taught it over and over. Now we just have to trust it. They gathered in the living room, the parallel bars ready, the exercise mats positioned beneath them just in case. Jennifer had taken the day off work. Robert had cleared his calendar. This was too important to miss. Katie transferred from her wheelchair to the parallel bars, gripping them tightly. Tyler stood beside her, his hands hovering near her waist, ready to support her if needed. Okay, Tyler said, his voice calm and steady. Remember everything we've practiced. The visualization, the muscle engagement, the weight transfer. You've done all of this 100 times in your mind. Now your body just has to follow through. Katie closed her eyes, taking deep breaths. Robert could see her lips moving slightly, probably running through the mental checklist Tyler had taught her. Visualize the movement. Feel the muscles engaging. Trust the process. She opened her eyes and pushed herself up. Her legs trembled, but they held. She'd been standing for weeks now, but it never stopped being miraculous to Robert. His little girl standing on her own 2 feet. Good, Tyler said. Now I want you to shift your weight to your left leg. Really feel all your weight on that left foot. Your right leg is going to be free to move. Katie's face was intense with concentration. Slowly, carefully, she shifted her weight. Her right leg lifted slightly off the ground. Perfect. Now keep your eyes forward. Don't look down. Your body knows where the ground is. You're going to move that right foot forward just 6 inches, nice and slow. The room was completely silent. Robert realized he was holding his breath. Jennifer had her hands clasped together like she was praying. Katie's right foot moved. It dragged slightly, scraping along the mat, but it moved forward. 6 inches, maybe 8, and then it touched down, taking her weight. She'd done it. She'd taken a step. Don't stop, Tyler said quickly, seeing Katie's surprise threatening to break her concentration. Left foot now. Shift your weight to the right, lift the left, move it forward. You're walking, Katie. You're actually walking, and she was. Slow, shaky, with Tyler's hands hovering inches from her waist the entire time, but she was walking. 1 step, 2 steps. 3 steps. By the 4th step, tears were streaming down her face, but she kept going. I'm walking, she whispered. Oh my God, I'm walking. Jennifer broke first, sobbing openly. Robert found his own vision blurring with tears. But he couldn't look away. His daughter was walking. After 7 months in a wheelchair, after being told by countless doctors that this would never happen, his daughter was walking. Katie made it 5 full steps before her legs started to shake too badly to continue. Tyler eased her back into the wheelchair, but the smile on Katie's face was brighter than the sun. I did it, she said, laughing through her tears. Tyler, I actually did it. You did, Tyler said, and Robert saw moisture in the boy's eyes too. I knew you could. I always knew. Katie grabbed Tyler's hand, squeezing it tight. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for believing when nobody else did. You did the hard work, Tyler said. I just showed you the way. You're the one who walked. The celebration that followed was loud and joyful. Robert ordered pizza for lunch, Katie's favorite. Jennifer called her mother, called her sister, called everyone she could think of to share the news. Katie spent the afternoon on video calls with her friends, showing them how she could stand, demonstrating the slight movements she could make. But for Robert, the most meaningful moment came later that evening. He found Tyler sitting alone on the back porch, staring up at the stars. You okay? Robert asked, settling into the chair beside him. Yeah, Tyler said. Just thinking about my mom, wishing she could have seen this. I think she did see it, Robert said. Through you. Every technique you used, every word of encouragement you gave Katie, that was your mom working through you.